Okay, my name is John Rudolph. I'm currently an undergraduate at the University of Arizona, majoring in history with a minor in business. My research focused on General Erwin Rommel and his tactics being used by the Israeli Defense Force. Okay. Okay, in 6 days, the IDF managed to triple the size of Israel and defeated a numerically superior force. The IDF was able to accomplish this by adopting aspects of the tactics of Rommel. Quickly, to go over the Israeli Defense Force, they were born out of the War of Independence in 1948, did not have an armored corps, and they really came into their own in 1956 when Colonel Uri Ben Ari disobeyed orders and went on the offensive 1 day ahead of schedule. Because of this, disobeying the orders, he was able to reach the Suez Canal in less than 100 hours. It's interesting to note that Ari achieved this victory by disobeying orders, something that Rommel was notorious for. After that, the Israeli Defense Force allocated a lot of funds for the Armored Corps. They put Colonel Israel Tal to command the Armored Corps, and he brought discipline and stressed the importance of maintaining gunnery. What he meant by that was they had purchased a bunch of Centurion tanks from the British, and he wanted to make sure that they were able to fire on the move. As Rommel had learned and preached in the 40s, in the desert, he who shoots first also must often hits first, and most often lives to tell the tale, which is why he stressed the gunnery so much, because he knew that in the next war, they were going to be able to have to shoot on the move and keep moving. So on the morning of June 5th, 1967, the Israeli Air Force attacked Egyptian airfields, and basically assured air superiority for the remainder of the campaign. Now this is crucial. It meant that the IDF would be the only outfit that could operate in classic blitzkrieg style with impunity. The Egyptians borrowed Soviet defense doctrine that would be used to counteract the German blitzkrieg. What it entailed was that the infantry would be behind minefields and the tanks would be held in reserve to plug up any gaps that the attack would present. To counteract this defense, the Israelis inverted the tactics that had worked so well for Rommel in North Africa during World War II. Rommel would maintain a fixed attack along the coastal road and wide armored sweeps into the desert. By contrast, the IDF wanted a feint attack into the desert and a large lightning thrust along the coast roads towards the Suez Canal and into the Egyptian rear. These are some Centurion tanks going into the Suez Canal. The Egyptians played right into the Israelis' hands by massing all of their units close to the front. This was for political reasons, because the Egyptian President Nasser refused and was unwilling to give up any ground. So Israel Tal was tasked with the main thrust along the coastal road. Tal stressed the importance of continuing the advance without concern for their flanks and regardless for the danger. So the advance was important at all costs. So Tal's division was here. His job was to go down the coastal road and reach El Arish, and after they were effectively in the Egyptian rear, the remaining two divisions would punch through. It's also interesting to note that this South Division here was commanded by Ariel Sharon, who later became Prime Minister of Israel. So with the ability to shoot on the move, an important lesson passed on by Rommel, the Armored Corps advanced down the coastal road at the Rafah Gap and eventually reached El Arish by the end of the second day. With Tal in firm control of the coastal road and in effect in the Egyptian rear, the remaining two armies sent the Egyptians reeling across the desert. the IDF begins to engage secondary Egyptian forces right about here, and they easily swept these forces aside and continued to the Suez Canal. After the Suez was secured, they moved south and trapped the remaining Egyptian army, and that was effectively the end of the war. Now, operational art. Operational art consists of 4 essential elements: time, space, means, and purpose. In order to better understand the issues Rommel confronted in the desert, it is important to keep these concepts in mind. Operational art is the planning and implementation of military effort with an eye towards achieving a political goal. Now, it is important to maintain a balance between time, space, means, and purpose. Without it, you could end up in catastrophe as far as an operation or a military campaign goes. So you start with the mission analysis, which is important, what is to be accomplished, because it gives you means and purpose, and the end state, which will constitute what will constitute the success. What are the intended political results with the military action? Now, it is important to know that the Wehrmacht did not widely teach operational art and was limited to members of the general staff. Rommel was not a member of the general staff, which is why he disliked the restrained, calculated approach that was practiced by his contemporaries. So, Rommel's lack of understanding operational art led to mistakes. Logistics issues was a prime example. Ignoring the logistics issues brought great gains, but there was no way to maintain them because of the logistics issue. This was reflected by the back and forth battle that was waged in the North African desert. The IDF, on the other hand, would not have the same logistical issues that Rommel had. They were fighting from their home turf and were able to attack full force without having that concern. So the IDF was better suited to Rommel's mantra of strike first and seizing the initiative. Besides that, Israel's position was very similar to Germany's at the beginning of the war. As far as strategically, they were surrounded by countries that were hostile towards it. They couldn't afford to get in a two-front war or a war of attrition. So whatever they had to do had to be done quick and decisive. So, in conclusion, in the end, I was unable to conclusively say that the IDF consciously adopted Rommel-Wehrmacht military doctrine. I did attempt to dig deeper into specific orders that were given by the IDF to pinpoint the exact moment that the move was made to Wehrmacht tactics, but I was unable to read them because they were in Hebrew. So I'm left with analysis of other military historians. At the very least, I did learn that the similarities are striking and very alike as far as the way the IDF operated and the way Rommel operated in the desert. Looking strictly at the facts, it leaves the impression that at the very least the IDF was influenced by Rommel. Those are my references. More references. Questions? Okay.
So I know you know the story.
Okay.
So I'd recommend relying on that because
Okay.
we're looking at your note cards quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you've presented this to us several times, and you're able to explain what happened and who Rommel is and who the Israeli Defense Force is. So don't second guess yourself. You already know it. And
Right.
I think it was really well thought out presentation. I think maybe a little bit more explicit description of what your method was. You were
Right.
maybe more at the beginning, because in the conclusion you said you had to rely on other military historians.
Right.
Is that some of what was in your previous slides, ways that Rommel did things and all of that, right?
Well,
That-
the introduction was Rommel. And then, so I had to go into the IDF and what they did as far as during the war to compare it to what Rommel did.
Okay. Maybe
I do have other like similarities that I didn't get into here because of time.
Right.
But like for my final presentation, I'm going to get into command structure and yeah.
I'm just saying like a little bit more of a roadmap at the beginning.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
you know where you're going to go.
Right.
Because there's a little bit like Rommel, IDF, and then Sinai, and then, you know,
Right. Okay. Okay.
I would definitely have a slide on your methodology. And where are you getting your data? If it's primary sources, what are those primary sources?
Okay.
Then you say some stuff's in Hebrew.
Right.
I'm wondering, you know, what are the primary sources that are in Hebrew? Or the
Okay.
technical maps? I guess I'm wondering what is all the data that you brought together to really look at or answer your question?
Okay.
I know that's probably not common in your field of study to do something like that.
Right.
But I think in a summer program like this, you really want to tell your audience, this summer, this is what I looked at. You know, you
Okay.
can call it, if it's a literature review, call it a literature review.
Okay.
Or looking at written documents or something along those lines. And you can just do that in one slide too. Because
Right.
I mean, did you read 100 books? Or did you primarily, you know, go down to 5 essential?
Well, it's more like-
What made them essential?
Okay.
Something along those lines. But I think that would be good.
Was okay then?